critical time in our nation's history, and just like Black lives, how we respond in Boston matters. My name is Kim Janey, and I'm the president of the most diverse city council in Boston's history, and I am proud to stand here in solidarity with my colleagues on the Boston City Council, Councilors Arroyo, who you just heard from, Councilors Campbell, Councilor Edwards, Mejia, and Wu, and we are also joined by other folks representing municipalities. We have here my sister from Chelsea, Damali Vido. How are you? We have, yes, give it up. We have from Springfield, Adam Gomez and Orlando Ramos. Give it up for them. We have from Brookline on the select board, Raul Fernandez. And my sisters in Randolph, Natalia Clergy, and my bestie, where you at? Katrina, there you are, Katrina Huff-Larman. And we stand here with all the electeds of color across the Commonwealth. We're here this morning because George Floyd's haunting last cries for breath are all too familiar. Breonna Taylor was struck by 8 bullets, killed in her own home by police. And just prior to that, while jogging through his neighborhood, Ahmaud Arbery was killed by a retired police officer and his son in what can only be described as a modern-day lynching. These are not isolated incidents. Indeed, what else could have resulted from a history steeped in centuries of violence against people of color in general and Black people in particular? A history of violence, all to protect a system designed to elevate a few at the expense of all others. That is what this is about. From Jim Crow laws to mass incarceration, to the unchecked state-sanctioned killings of unarmed Black people, what we have witnessed and experienced for generations is a system that finds new ways to devalue Black lives at every turn. It's exhausting. I'm tired and I'm traumatized. I'm not just the council president or the District 7 counselor representing the heart of Boston's Black community. I'm a Black woman, scared for every Black man in my life. I can't stop thinking of my 12-year-old grandson who was here today and his 16-year-old brother. My grandsons are growing up in the age of Trump. I am scared for our girls too. As women, we face violence and we face nonstop microaggressions from the Amy Coopers in our daily lives. It is exhausting and it is traumatic. And this trauma is compounded by the trauma of COVID-19 and its disproportionate impact on the Black community, which is a result of pre-existing inequities in our city, in our Commonwealth, and in our country. And those inequities can be traced back all the way to this system that devalues Black lives. And the sad irony is that we, who are most vulnerable to COVID, because of how this system devalues Black lives, are constantly put in a position where we have to put ourselves at risk for our very survival, including protesting in large crowds of people and risking exposure to COVID, a disease that is disproportionately impacting us. It's a vicious cycle. We are all standing here united as electeds of color across the Commonwealth because this is life and death for the people in our communities. Despite all that we are going through, I'm thankful. I'm thankful for this community, for this village. I'm grateful to those who have taken to the streets over the past week to protest peacefully. As our Congresswoman reminded us, Roxbury has a rich history of community organizers and activists who have worked for many years to build up our community, and we're not about to let anyone come and tear it down. I was angered to see the few individuals who used the downtown protest as an opportunity to wreak havoc in our city. We cannot allow interlopers to co-opt our movement for their own agenda. I also want to say that I fully condemn violence in all of its forms, and that means violence against protesters, and violence against police officers. For anyone to say that anyone up here would wish harm against the police is not only not true, it is hurtful. This is a time for healing. And we can only have healing if there is true justice. And more important is the distraction from the real work before all of us. Boston's recent and upcoming protests call for real change that for far too long has fallen upon deaf ears. Change that addresses our housing crisis, invests in the education of Black and brown children, and provides real opportunity for economic mobility of Boston's Black community. Today, we are standing together with a legislative agenda on all fronts, the federal level, the county level, the state level, and the municipal level. This is a call to action. There are several dockets on the Boston City Council that need your support, and I won't go through all of them. And what we're talking about Boston is the same for Randolph, it's the same for Chelsea, it's the same for Springfield, it's the same for Worcester, it's the same for all of the communities represented here today. So we do have a resolution in support of federal action condemning police brutality and racial profiling and the use of excess and militarized force. That's coming up today. We have an ordinance banning facial recognition technology in Boston and surveillance oversight. We have a resolution, a text amendment for Boston zoning code relative to affirmatively furthering fair housing. We have a docket to review the equitable regulation of the cannabis industry here. We have a docket regarding the equity of the city procurement, and the list goes on. Our agenda must be one that promotes and protects the true liberation of Black people in our country after 400 years of oppression. Our fight involves more than just putting an end to police brutality and state-sanctioned killings of unarmed Black people. We need legislation that tackles discriminatory housing, policies that have our people living in substandard housing. We need strategies to address the health disparities that result in a 30-year life expectancy gap in my district, depending on what zip code you live in. We need policies that eliminate the opportunity and achievement gap in our schools, and we need a plan to close the enormous wealth gap in Boston, where the median net worth for Black families is $8. $8 is not an accident. It is a product of a system of white supremacy built on a foundation of chattel slavery, a system that was deliberately and methodically crafted by the first colonists, institutionalized by the founding fathers, and perfected by subsequent generations of lawmakers. We, as electeds of color, say no more. That's such a system. We know it won't crumble easily. Dismantling it will take work, it will take political will, and it will take everyone, including those who benefit from that very system. We need real solidarity, and we can't have justice, we can't have peace, we can't have healing without justice. Thank you. And now we have our mayor. Our mayor, please.